July 18th, 1944. Near Saint-Lô, Normandy, France. Dawn breaks low and gray over the Norman countryside. A damp mist clings to the hedgerows, muffling the distant thunder of artillery. The earth smells of churned mud, cordite, and crushed grass. Somewhere to the west, American guns fire in rolling waves, not the sharp crack of desperation, but the steady, methodical rhythm of abundance. Inside a command half-track concealed beneath camouflage netting, Generalleutnant Fritz Bayerlein, commander of the elite Panzer-Lehr Division, studies his maps in silence. The division was once the pride of the German armored force, packed with veteran instructors, modern Panthers and Panzer IVs, and battle-hardened crews. Now, after weeks of relentless air attack and artillery bombardment, it is bleeding to death in the bocage. A staff officer steps forward, boots thick with mud. "Herr General, our forward elements report something unusual." Bayerlein looks up. His face is tight, drawn by exhaustion. He has slept little since the Allies landed on June 6th. Every movement his division makes in daylight is punished by fighter bombers. Every attempt to mass armor ends in fire. "Unusual how?" he asks. The officer hesitates. "They've overrun an American supply area, intact, largely abandoned." That gets Bayerlein to his feet. Minutes later, his staff vehicle lurches forward along a rutted farm road. Burned-out Shermans lie in the fields, black skeletons against the green. Dead horses, smashed carts, shattered stone walls. Normandy has become a killing ground. Yet as they move deeper, something changes. The shell craters thin out, the wreckage disappears, and then suddenly the hedgerows open. What lies beyond stops everyone cold. Before them stretches a vast clearing, not a battlefield, but an industrial landscape dropped into the French countryside. Row after row of olive-drab trucks parked with military precision. Fuel drums stacked like walls, thousands of them, stretching farther than the eye can see. Crates of artillery shells, small arms ammunition, spare tank engines, tires, radios, rations, everything neatly labeled, everything untouched. The engines are cold. The Americans have pulled back, not in panic, but in motion, already shifting forward with the advance. A German lieutenant climbs down from a truck, eyes wide. "Herr General, this alone could supply an entire army for weeks." Bayerlein says nothing. He walks slowly between the vehicles, running a gloved hand along a fuel tanker. The metal is smooth, factory fresh, no rust, no patches. He opens a crate, inside stacks of new boots, still smelling of leather. Nearby, German soldiers laugh in disbelief as they pry open ration boxes, chocolate. Coffee, cigarettes, more food than they have seen in months. One NCO mutters, half joking, half stunned. They don't fight a war, they manufacture it. Bayerlein stops at the edge of the dump and looks back across the sea of material. His mind, trained by years of operational planning, does the math automatically. This is not a frontline cache. This is not a gamble. This is systemic. For every dump like this one, there must be another, and another. Feeding the American advance like a conveyor belt from the sea. Trucks flow forward, empty ones flow back. Replacement units arrive fully equipped, while German formations scrape together fuel by siphoning wrecks at night. He thinks of his own situation. Panzer-Lehr has tanks without fuel, crews without replacements, radios without spare parts. Requests sent up the chain vanish into silence. The Luftwaffe is absent. The rail lines behind them are shattered by bombers. Every shell fired is counted. And here, the enemy leaves mountains of supply behind, not because they cannot protect it, but because they no longer need it. An artillery round whistles in the distance, closer now. The Americans are coming back, pushing forward again, inexorably. Bayerlein turns to his chief of staff. "How long could we fight if we captured everything here?" The answer comes quietly. "Perhaps a week, Herr General. 2 at most." Bayerlein nods once. He already knew. This war, he realizes, is no longer being decided by tactics, bravery, or even weapons. It is being decided by production, by logistics, by an industrial force Germany cannot touch, let alone match. As his men begin the hurried task of destroying what they cannot carry, Bayerlein stands alone for a moment longer, listening to the distant engines of American armor rolling forward. For the first time since the campaign began, the thought forms clearly in his mind, cold, undeniable, and final. This war cannot be won. The first explosions ripple through the supply dump just minutes after Bayerlein orders the withdrawal. German pioneers plant charges hastily, focusing on fuel tankers and ammunition stacks. Thick black smoke coils into the Norman sky as gasoline ignites, the flames roaring louder than artillery. It is destruction born not of triumph, but futility. Bayerlein watches from a shallow ditch as one truck after another disappears in fire. He knows the Americans will replace this loss without pause. He knows, with a certainty that chills him, that the destruction means nothing. As his staff vehicle pulls away, the general's thoughts drift backward, not to glory, but to arithmetic. He remembers the briefings before Normandy. Intelligence reports had warned of American production figures, but on paper, numbers can be ignored. In reality, they crush you. The United States, he knows, is producing nearly 100,000 aircraft a year. Tanks roll off assembly lines faster than German divisions can destroy them. Ships, thousands of them, cross the Atlantic in endless convoys, each guarded by escorts. Germany no longer has the fuel to challenge. And now, on French soil, that industrial tide has arrived intact. The road back to divisional headquarters is crowded with shattered remnants of what was once Panzer Lehr. Burned-out Panthers line the verges, victims of Jabos, American fighter bombers that scream out of the sky with rockets and cannon fire. Crews sit beside them, faces gray, waiting for orders that never come. A young tank commander salutes as Bayerlein passes. "Herr General, do we counterattack tonight?" Bayerlein meets his eyes. For a moment, he considers the lie, the comforting illusion of action. "Hold your position," he says instead. "Conserve fuel. We move only if ordered." The commander nods, but the doubt is unmistakable. At headquarters, Bayerlein gathers his senior officers inside a ruined stone farmhouse. Maps are spread across a table scarred by shrapnel. Pins mark American units pushing south of St. Lo. Each pin represents a regiment fully supplied, supported by artillery that never seems to run dry. An intelligence officer begins his report, voice flat. American truck columns are moving continuously from the beaches. Estimates suggest over 20,000 vehicles operating in Normandy alone. They refer to it as the Red Ball Express. The words hang in the air. Bayerlein knows the concept well now. A rolling supply artery, depots feeding depots, roads prioritized solely for logistics. Military efficiency stripped of ideology, driven by volume and speed. In contrast, German logistics are collapsing. Rail hubs smashed by Allied bombers. Fuel convoys destroyed before reaching the front. Ersatz units arriving with minimal training and obsolete equipment. One officer speaks what the others are thinking. If they keep this pace, even perfect tactics will not stop them. Bayerlein does not argue. Instead, he recalls something he once told his men years earlier. Wars are won by those who can fight the longest. At the time, he believed Germany could endure. Now, standing in Normandy, that belief is gone. That night, American artillery begins again. Not the sporadic fire of probing attacks, but a sustained crushing barrage. Shells fall with mechanical regularity, hour after hour. There is no pause, no need to conserve ammunition. Bayerlein lies awake in his command post, the ground trembling beneath him. He times the impacts unconsciously. Every few seconds, then every few seconds again. It is not anger he feels, it is awe. No army, he realizes, could fire like this without an ocean of shells behind it. At dawn, reports arrive. American infantry advancing under rolling barrages, tanks following closely, engineers already repairing roads and bridges behind them. Losses are replaced almost immediately. Units shattered one day reappear the next, rearmed and reinforced. A message from higher command arrives by courier. The handwriting is rushed. Hold positions at all costs. Führer orders no withdrawal. Bayerlein folds the paper carefully. All costs, he thinks, staring at the ink. The phrase has lost its meaning. Costs imply limits. The Americans, he now understands, are fighting a war without visible limits. Later that morning, Bayerlein had overhead silver dots cross the sky. American aircraft flying unopposed. He watches them for a long time, counting, then stops counting. A junior officer approaches cautiously. "Herr General, do you believe we can still stop them?" Bayerlein does not answer immediately. He looks east toward Germany, toward factories running on dwindling power, toward cities burning under bombers, toward a homeland bleeding resources it cannot replace. Finally, he speaks, not as a commander delivering orders, but as a soldier confronting reality. "We can still fight," he says. "But stopping them, no. That time has passed." The officer nods slowly, absorbing the truth. From this moment forward, Bayerlein knows every German success will be temporary, every counterattack a delay, every sacrifice a postponement of the inevitable. The Americans will keep coming, not because they are braver or smarter or stronger individually, but because behind every soldier stands a factory, a dock, a convoy, and a supply dump so vast it reshapes the battlefield itself. And Bayerlein, veteran of France, Russia, and Africa, understands at last what this war has become. Not a contest of armies, but a contest of systems, one of which Germany is already losing. The American advance does not pause to celebrate its gains. There are no grand speeches, no dramatic halts. It simply moves. By late July 1944, the countryside south of Saint-Lô becomes a river of motion. Infantry columns march past shattered villages. Tanks rumble forward in long files, their engines steady and confident. Behind them, always behind them, trucks follow in endless streams, dust rising in thick clouds that hang over the roads like smoke. Bayerlein watches this from a concealed observation post one afternoon, binoculars pressed to his eyes. What unsettles him is not the armor, nor the artillery. It is the organization. Each unit advances, halts, refuels, rearms, and advances again, as if guided by an invisible hand. When a bridge is destroyed, engineers appear within hours. When roads are cratered, bulldozers level them. When units take losses, replacements arrive with alarming speed. This is the battlefield the German High Command never prepared for. Reports filter in from neighboring divisions. Panzer units immobilized for lack of fuel. Infantry formations reduced to skeletal strength. Communications failing as radio batteries die and replacements never arrive. And always, above it all, American aircraft patrol freely. Bayerlein recalls his time in North Africa 2 years earlier, fighting under Field Marshal Erwin Rommel. Even then, logistics had been decisive. The Afrika Korps often fought brilliantly, only to stall when fuel ran dry. The lesson had been clear. But here in Normandy, the scale is different. This is logistics not as a constraint, but as a weapon. On July 25th, the Americans unleash Operation Cobra. The morning begins with a sound Bayerlein has never heard before, not even on the Eastern Front. Thousands of heavy bombers approach in waves, their engines merging into a single, continuous roar. The sky darkens as B-17s and B-24s release their loads. The ground erupts. Entire German positions vanish beneath curtains of fire. Roads disappear. Command posts are obliterated. Survivors stumble from the wreckage, deafened, blinded, shocked beyond speech. Panzer Lehr is hit directly. When the bombing ends, what remains of the division is no longer a coherent fighting force. Tanks are overturned like toys. Vehicles burn without crews to save them. Officers struggle to locate units that no longer exist. Yet even in this devastation, something strikes Bayerlein. The American ground forces do not rush forward blindly. They advance methodically, under artillery cover, engineers already clearing paths through the chaos. The destruction is not random. It is synchronized. That night, Bayerlein drafts a report to higher command. He chooses his words carefully, knowing honesty can be dangerous. He describes the bombing, the material losses, the inability to maneuver under constant air attack. But between the lines lies a deeper warning, the enemy's ability to sustain this level of destruction indefinitely. He never writes the sentence outright, but the meaning is clear. This cannot be reversed. In private conversations with fellow commanders, the tone is darker still. One colonel mutters that Germany is fighting the world's largest factory. Another quietly admits that even if the front holds, the war will be lost in months, not years. Bayerlein says little. He listens. He knows that belief in victory has become a liability. Men fight harder when they believe, but commanders must see the truth, even if they cannot speak it aloud. As July turns to August, the American breakout accelerates. German lines crack. Units retreat not by plan, but by survival. Roads clog with refugees, wounded soldiers, shattered equipment. Bayerlein's division retreats eastward, no longer a spearmillia delaying force. One evening, as dusk settles over a burning village, Bayerlein stands beside his vehicle, watching American trucks pass in the distance, headlights dimmed, engines humming steadily. There are hundreds of them, thousands perhaps. He thinks again of that supply dump, the fuel, the ammunition, the boots still wrapped in paper. Not a stroke of luck. A system. And systems, once in motion, do not tire. They do not doubt. They do not run out of faith. For Germany, the war has become a matter of time, and time, Bayerlein knows, now belongs to the enemy. August arrives in Normandy under a relentless sun. The dust is thick now, coating uniforms, clogging engines, stinging eyes. For the German army, retreat has become a way of life. Bayerlein rides with what remains of Panzer Lehr through narrow roads choked with refugees and broken units. Discipline still exists, barely, but the structure is crumbling. Orders arrive late or not at all. Fuel is rationed by the litter. Tanks are abandoned not because they are damaged, but because there is nothing left to feed their engines. At every crossroads, American pressure is felt. Artillery strikes fall with uncanny accuracy. Fighter bombers circle like predators, diving on any movement that dares show itself in daylight. Yet what unsettles Bayerlein most is not the enemy's firepower. It is their confidence. American units advance without hesitation, even after setbacks. When a battalion is slowed, another flows around it. When resistance stiffens, overwhelming force is applied. Not heroics, but certainty. The certainty that tomorrow will bring more shells, more fuel, more men. In early August, Bayerlein receives a rare visit from a senior staff officer from Army Group B. The man looks exhausted, eyes sunken, uniform stained with sweat and dust. They speak privately. The Führer still believes a decisive counterstroke is possible, the officer says quietly. He insists the enemy will overextend. Bayerlein exhales slowly. Overextend with what? He replies. They advance on roads we cannot bomb, supplied by ports we cannot reach, guarded by skies we do not control. The officer does not argue. By now, the truth has reached even the highest levels, though few dare acknowledge it openly. Germany's enemies are no longer constrained by geography or scarcity. The Atlantic, once a barrier, has become a bridge. Then comes the order that seals the fate of what remains in Normandy. Hold the line. No retreat, again. Bayerlein reads it in silence. He knows what will follow. Encirclement. Destruction. A slow suffocation of men and machines. Within days, the German front collapses into chaos as Allied forces swing south and east, racing toward the Seine. Units retreat in fragments, pursued relentlessly. The trap begins to close. Near Falaise, Bayerlein witnesses scenes he will never forget. Columns of German vehicles stretch for kilometers, stalled, bombed, burning. Horses scream, ammunition explodes in sudden, violent bursts. The road becomes a corridor of death. Overhead, Allied aircraft strike at will. There is no air cover, no respite. And yet, even amid this catastrophe, the Americans do not slow. Their supply lines hold. Fuel trucks roll forward even as bombs fall. Engineers clear wreckage while shells still burst nearby. It is here, amid the shattered remnants of the German army, that Bayerlein's realization hardens into certainty. This is not a defeat born of one battle or one mistake. It is the outcome of a war Germany could never sustain. The men fight bravely. That is not in question. But bravery cannot replace fuel. Courage cannot manufacture shells. Faith cannot build ships faster than they are sunk. One evening, as the pocket tightens, Bayerlein sits on an overturned ammunition crate, writing in his notebook by fading light. Around him, officers speak in hushed tones. No one talks of victory anymore. He writes not for propaganda, but for memory. The enemy's strength lies not merely in weapons, but in an economy mobilized without restraint. We face not an army, but an inexhaustible source. The words are simple, clinical, true. Days later, battered and nearly surrounded, Bayerlein is wounded during an air attack. Shrapnel tears through his leg. He is evacuated under fire, one of the few senior commanders to escape the Falaise pocket alive. As he is carried away, he watches American armor roll past the smoking battlefield, already pushing east, already supplied, already prepared for the next phase. Normandy is over. France will soon be lost. And for Bayerlein, the knowledge gained among those abandoned supply dumps now echoes with every mile of retreat. The war's end is no longer a question of if,